most interesting observations I have from the event is by talking to telecom operators. Of course, this is a network event, and the network centricity is the most important aspect for all of them. Like back to core, back to network. Let's make sure that our core business is run in a cost-efficient way, and it's run in a way that it's monetizable and can make us money. But there is also almost a bifurcation of the industry where some telecom network operators are essentially telling us, well, we know the network story, we know that the growth is in some ways a bit limited, and we are looking at anything beyond network, especially in B2B, and especially in IT and B2B, or a combination of coming from the application, the business application, all the way down to architecting the network in a way that kind of makes this B2B work. So in summary, what I really see is almost a bifurcation of thoughts of telecom operators, those that think they want to be more of a plumbing operator and back to the core, back to the network, and those who think they want to almost kind of decouple their business. Decouple not in a network sense, but in a business sense. And they don't need to be dependent on their own network in order to do to have services and business services. So I think that's probably kind of from a high-level helicopter view of the industry is probably the most interesting observation I have so far.
It's been a great 3 days here at NetworkX. I've had the opportunity to meet with the ecosystem along with numerous operators, and you always learn so much from operators, whether it's at individual meetings or at the roundtable. I had the opportunity to lead a roundtable focusing on the path from 10 GPON to 100 GPON, and what are the use cases, what are some of the operational and deployment challenges and opportunities that operators are seeing. You know, the great news about passive optical networking, known as PON, is that it's meeting bandwidth growth requirements. It's passive, which means it's meeting energy requirements. And clearly many operators here are very much focused on reducing energy consumption. And that has been a key theme in individual meetings with operators. Another key theme is monetization. So we are definitely seeing a focus on end-to-end slicing, particularly around 25G and 50G PON. What's interesting here is that the operators want to have what I call flexible slicing. So they don't want to be tied into where they have to permanently give a slice, because that's not how their end customers think about it. Their end customers really want the ability and the functionality to turn on and off end-to-end slicing, just like to increase bandwidth for certain times of the day, or an important client call is coming up. They want to have very much flexibility around changing bandwidth, ensuring that certain work applications will provide high quality of experience at the moment. So a lot of interesting things are happening in the access network. We also are seeing a number of vendors make it much simpler for operators to deploy fiber all the way to the premise and to upgrade fiber all the way to the premise as needs change. So there's a lot of exciting things happening here at NetworkX.
I was hosting the Connect France track, all in French, which was great. And we had speakers from the government, from the Ministry of Economy and Industry in France, talking about the amount of investments that they've made in 5G, in fiber as well. So France is one of the leading countries in terms of fiber penetration, fiber adoption, and the government has been really good in terms of like promoting and pushing investment into the deployment of fiber. So we're seeing a similar level of, I would say, positive developing, deploying 5G networks and growing 5G networks, which is really fantastic. We also had a speaker from ARCEP, which is the regulator in France, sharing some data. It was really great. I wish we could see more data like this across all countries. Yes, and then we had some sessions on 6G as well. So 6G is a theme that comes back every year at Network X. And I think here what was interesting is to look at the fact that 6G in France, there's already some investments and money that is put forward and some projects that are already ongoing. There are 4 projects in France on 6G being partly funded by the government, being pushed. So that's really interesting to see. Now, our expectations for 6G we have to be realistic. It's a long time away. There's a lot of issues to address from a sustainability standpoint, from a technology standpoint, from a commercial standpoint. We're barely making it with 5G. In France, 5G penetration, or the share of mobile connections that are on 5G in France is only 10% at the moment, so we have a long, long way to go.
The key discussions that I've been having with service providers is really how they can use that technology and their footprint in the home to really drive new levels of customer experience. And that's to start with about the actual connection and using what we call managed Wi-Fi technology to create a better user experience for the customer, but then to build on top of that to put in new value-added services into the home, initially around that connection to improve the experience further, but then to kind of go beyond that, put new services, new features, new applications into the home, which will, yes, drive better experience, but also then open up new value-added service opportunities, which will then drive greater broadband ARPU and new revenues. So those have been the key discussions that I've been having with service providers here at Network X.
What I've seen throughout the conference is more and more telcos are investing in value-added services. They are trying to monetize the smart home in different ways. Sometimes they are going really close to the core. Some other times they are keen and risky and invest on other things that are not normally the domain. For example, home security, insurance, e-health. So they're keen to explore those things and they're doing it well. Some other cases they are failing, but they are learning through those experiences. So that's one of my key takeaways from this conference. It's the willingness to invest on those things and try to improve and explore new areas, so that's good.
As part of my remit, I research 5G core, and this is a really important topic because very few operators have thus far deployed the 5G core and really need. 5G core is the next stage in the 5G evolution in terms of deployments. We counted in our research about 45 operators that have launched 5G core by end of September this year, and this is slightly lower than what we had predicted earlier last year or late last year. And that's really because of several factors, because of costs, because of macroeconomic environments and uncertainties, and a lot of operators, and this comes also from not just from our surveys, but from talking to operators, because of their, let's say, they say it's lack of TCO or lack of return on investment. So it's really important now that we go forward in the next few years and we see more launches, because the 5G core will enable operators to monetize these networks. So we've had a lot of 5G RAN deployments over the last 4 or 5 years, but the 5G core is really the brain of the network. And here over the conference, I've had the opportunity to talk to many people. I've had to moderate several panels around 5G core. And one of the topics that's come about is automation. Automation is really, really critical key, because we're now going into this age of cloud native networks for the 5G, and the way the whole core is architected, automation will really deliver benefits and additional efficiencies which operators need to use and utilize on their daily operational activities to bring up services, to tear those services down, and to deliver new monetizable services so they can better, again, monetize their service and their networks.
So I had the opportunity to chair the opening session for Broadband World Forum. We had a great lineup of speakers and keynotes, as well as a fantastic panel. And I think the overarching theme is that operators are really excited about fiber, using PON as efficient, scalable technology. A lot of excitement around XGS PON, but a lot of conversation around 25 gig PON and 50 gig PON as well. So really what applications that can be unlocked using these next gen solutions, as well as how it can make a difference for the consumer, were really some of the key themes that I came across during Network X this year.
We had a really interesting roundtable discussion about sustainability. And obviously the risk with these things is that it's always a tendency to do a bit of greenwashing. But we actually had quite an honest and frank discussion about things like carbon credits and the questionability about their validity as a way of combating your CO2 emissions. We talked a lot about solar power and how operators are looking to put in solar panels on cell sites and batteries in order to be self-sufficient, particularly in places where the grid electricity supply is not reliable. And one of the things that I shared from some research that we've done recently was that telecom operators actually spend more money on advertising than they do on electricity. So we've been banging on about energy efficiency for several years now, but I wonder if there's also some opportunity to be more efficient in advertising spend. So those were some of the things that we discussed in the round table, and I think everyone came away with some fresh insights.
It's been a very interesting conference. So my focus has really been on the broadband sector and in particular on fibre. So lots of discussions there around business models. So whether that's vertically integrated, wholesale and retail or wholesale only, talking through some of the advantages and disadvantages of those models, where and to whom they might be applicable. So lots of interesting conversations there. Also, as we've seen, lots of fibre that's already been rolled out and a certain tightening of financial conditions. There's a lot more emphasis now on converting the homes passed on the fibre network into subscribers. So lots of discussion about how to accelerate the take-up. So for example, in terms of what an altnet might do in terms of branding, in terms of its retail proposition, in terms of its sales channels as well. And I think certainly what comes across is there are success stories amongst the altnet community, and it's good to hear some of those case studies and examples of success. I think one other big point of discussion in the fibre space is around the migration from GPON to XGS-PON. So lots of discussion with operators and vendors around that. And one thing that comes across is that there really are a wide variety of reasons why operators might make that migration. Those reasons might be different for different kinds of operators in different territories, but we do note a certain acceleration in that migration and the interest there. At the same time, we also see more discussion around what comes after XGS-PON. So one example of that was Google Fiber with its 25 GPON announcement and moving to offer plans with 20 gigabit per second speeds. So technology with the PON network was, as I say, a big point of discussion. And then finally, I was participating in the World Broadband Association Broadband Development Congress, which is very interesting discussions there. So really a lot of that focused on discussions around the socio-economic value of broadband and what policymakers and governments can do to accelerate the availability of broadband and to make sure broadband is of excellent quality. So I think a lot of the value there was in the sharing of case studies and examples of success where, for instance, some countries have achieved higher broadband penetration levels than their income levels would predict. And there could be various reasons for that. So one thing might be flexibility in terms of retail tariffs, prepaid tariffs, but also in terms of the availability of good quality broadband itself can help accelerate growth in penetration as well.
In mature markets, fiber upgrades are primary focus for service providers and the governments. According to Omdia data, nearly 65% of all subscriptions in Europe will be fiber subscriptions by the end of 2028. I'm very honored to chair a number of exciting sessions about altnets here at the Network X. Altnets are making a great contribution to the deployment of fiber in Europe. We're going to get a great lineup of speakers who will get us 360-degree view on what it takes for retail and wholesale providers to deploy, run, and monetize fiber networks. A number of insightful sessions will also highlight the specific challenges that are faced by the altnets relating to the brand recognition, customer acquisition, overcrowding and overbuilding. We will also debate why the consolidation in altnet space is important and how and when it is going to happen.
So there have been a lot of very interesting conversations happening at Network X regarding the opportunity to monetize 5G and particularly the opportunity in the enterprise space. Now, something that really caught my attention was the relationship between private networks and network slicing and how telcos are trying to find the right segment to target with these two different types of solutions. Now, there are also different views on how telcos should really push themselves into the enterprise 5G space. Some are saying that telcos should really take a slow, step-by-step approach, while others seem to be a little bit more aggressive in their plans that they have to really boost the enterprise 5G story and to really get that success story that 5G is yet to deliver for the telco world.
In this year's Network X event, we see service providers continuing with their cloudification journey. In the process, they are changing how they do things, they're changing their modus vivendi, they're changing their operational processes and their culture. At the same time, there is a general realization that the network stack that is built is a very complex one, very complex to manage, and they are required to build complex service over it, but at the end, they are required to still offer a very simple product. And there is the realization that they can't do it unless they have some sort of automation that will help them in this journey. It is difficult to find the first steps. It's difficult to find where to start. Most service providers find it challenging to kick off their automation projects and to find out what is the right approach. But the challenges are common in the whole industry. It's not that anybody's doing something wrong. It's mostly that it's a very, very difficult journey to start.